welcome back. In last week's video installment, I began by looking at the opening of the last week's portion with the word Vayikra, a word that is unusual, not used very often when describing the communication between God, between Hashem and Moses, Hashem and Moshe. We're used to words like Vayomer, he said Vaydaber, and he spoke, but there he used the word Vayikra. This week we have once again an even less frequent term used in communicating an instruction to Moshe. The portion opens with quite a classic opening, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar, and God spoke to Moses saying, but then he goes on to say, Tzav es Aharon ve'es banav Lemar, command Aaron and his sons saying. Tzav, command, a very unusual term, and the great biblical commentator Rashi, knowing that we would be puzzled by this, he comments as follows. He says, Ein tzav ela loshen zirus miyad oladoros. That tzav is only meant to be there. The word tzav, command, it usually denotes a sense of urgency or encouragement, which means that it applies both for now, there's an urgency to start it now, and for all generations. Tzav means a concept of urgency. Command means that you should do it now, there's an encouragement and an urgency. And the understanding for this is as follows. Our Talmud tells us that the rabbis say, Godol hamatzuva va'isa mimi she'ena matzuva va'isa, which is quite a surprising statement. It means greater is somebody who is commanded to do something and does it than somebody who is not commanded to do something and does it, which is strange. You would have thought that if somebody does something of their own accord, they have a greater merit than somebody who's told to do something. The reality is very different. We all know in our own lives that somehow when we're told to do something, particularly as children, when we're told to do something, it becomes that much more difficult. When our parents tell us to do something, it becomes that much more difficult to fulfill. When our teachers tell us to do something, it becomes more difficult to fulfill. There is suddenly a burden, there is suddenly a difficulty that is associated with being told to do something. Whereas when we decide of our own accord, we want to do it, it's quite easy. I've decided I'm going to do it. I don't need much encouragement, I don't need much motivation, I'm going to do it myself. This is what is going on over here. Rashi says, Ein tzav ela loshen zirus. Tzav means that it needs encouragement, urgency. It's because this is a commandment to Aaron and his sons to fulfill the particular mitzvah. And therefore Rashi understands the word tzav as a commandment that you need extra urgency. Because in order to fulfill the commandment from Hashem, we need extra motivation, we need extra encouragement, and we need extra urgency, because as we know, it becomes suddenly very difficult. Then Hashem is telling Moshe to speak to Aaron and his sons, tell them all about the sacrifices. After all, they're the ones going to be observing the sacrifices, they're the ones going to be performing the sacrifices. One of the parts of the service, in fact the first part of the service of the day, was to separate the ashes. We're told right in the opening that they must separate the ashes from what was on the altar, from the previous day's sacrifice, separate a portion, put it, place it in fact, next to the altar, and then they put on two new logs for the fire. And this is the next instruction. Hashem tells Moshe to tell Aaron, V'samai eitzel hamizbeach, they must place it next to the mizbeach. And the Medrash tells us something very fascinating. V'samai, they must place it, the Medrash learns that it has to be benachas, carefully, kulai, all of it, and also it must be next to the mizbeach. You have to put all of it carefully and make sure that it doesn't spread all over the place, doesn't blow all over the place. How does the Medrash know this from this word v'samai? Well, because there's different ways of saying that you must put something somewhere. You have either put or place. In Hebrew it's nesina or sima. Nesina is to put, sima is to place. And in fact, those of you that watch the blog on a weekly basis will know that I've made reference to this in a previous video. A previous video I spoke about how Moshe erected the tabernacle, and I quoted a verse where it says over there that Vayitein es berichov Vayosem es karoshav. Vayitein es berichov means that he put the sockets, Vayosem es karoshav, and he placed the planks. Why does it say he put the sockets and he placed the planks? because when it came to the sockets, he doesn't need to be careful which one went in what place. You can use any one in whatever order. But when it came to the planks, they had a special order to them. He had to place them carefully. Placing it denotes that I'm being careful about the way I do it. I'm thinking about the way I do it. And in fact, this is where we get the prohibition of writing on Shabbos, because the 39 melachos of Shabbos come from the 39 categories of work that were performed with regards to building the Mishkan. One of them was placing the planks in the sockets, and they used to put on each plank a letter, Aleph and then Aleph. They knew Aleph went next to Aleph, then base, each one you knew that a base went next to a base, like placing 1 and 1, you knew the two ones go together. And this is the way they knew the strict order. So placing the planks had a strict order, and this is what happened. And coming back to what we were speaking about just now, therefore the Samai placing, the Medrash understood that this was something that needed to be done very carefully, all of it, and in order that carefully means that it shouldn't spread and blow all over the place. After all, this was holy now, this was used for the sacrifices. After having performed this work, this very dirty work, the Torah tells us, "Ufoshat es begodov," he takes off his clothes, "V'lavash begodim acherim," and he puts on other clothes. He changes his clothes. And Rashi says that the reason for this is because it's disrespectful. It's not appropriate. Rashi says that begodim shebishal behem, he quotes the Talmud, begodim shebishal behem kedera l'rabbi, the clothes that you wear to cook food for your master, then al yimzok behem kois l'rabbi, a person should not use those same clothes to serve and pour out a glass of wine for your master, i.e. they're all dirty clothes. Now he's going to go on to the next part of the service. It's not appropriate that we're wearing dirty clothes in front of Hashem when after he's clean. Now he's going to bring the sacrifice. He has to take off his clothes and put on new, fresh, clean linen clothes. And our rabbis learn out from here a very important lesson for us with regards to Shabbos clothes. We too on Shabbos are performing the service of Hashem. And what we have to do over here is ensure that the clothes that we're serving Hashem in a mundane way, which have a weekday, which are our weekday clothes, they may be very smart, they may be very nice, but they're still associated with weekday. We should not perform the service in them. That in fact we must ensure we have special Shabbos clothes, clothes that we wear on Shabbos, or if we don't have clothes set aside for Shabbos, we should at least ensure that we have clean clothes for Shabbos, that we change before Shabbos comes in. So that way we can ensure what we're doing is we are serving Hashem in the best possible manner with clean clothes. This is obviously a very powerful lesson for us. We need to ensure that we have, when serving Hashem, we need to take into account all of these things. Thank you for watching. Once again, please do share it with your friends, with your family, and if you have any comments, any feedback at all, I would be very happy to hear from you. Thank you for watching.